Good evening. We'd like to welcome everybody out to our board meeting. We're going to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can we please do the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Next, we'll have our roll call attendance. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray.
Here.
Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Kingman.
Here.
President Levesque.
Here.
Director Knapp.
Here.
Student Advisor Schroeder.
Here.
Student Advisor LeBon.
She's absent and excused.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any additions or edits to the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. The agenda is adopted as presented. Next up, we'll have our approval of the minutes. We've got two sets of minutes to approve, our regular meeting minutes from September 12th and our special board study session meeting minutes from September 19th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 12th?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes for September 12th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from September 12th. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Those minutes are adopted. Next, we have our special board study session meeting minutes from September 19th. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the special board study session meeting minutes from September 19th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from September 19th. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. We're going to skip the public comments because we have no one signed up to speak. And next up, we have our consent agenda. That includes our budget and enrollment reports, our personnel report, warrants, the AHS yearbook students overnight field trip, the federal and states grants overview, transitional bilingual instructional program, instructional materials and programs committee members, mental health counselors, cooperative agreements, renewal, Northwest EST 189 mental health counselor agreement, City of Arlington lease agreement for the transportation center, and the Everett Community College and the high school interagency agreement. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, or does anybody need anything pulled?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. Next up, we have our new business portion of our meeting. And first up in that portion is our summer school 2021-22 overview. This will be presented by Carrie Henderson Burke, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, and she will introduce Carl Olson and Marilee Herman on Zoom.
Thank you, President Levesque. We had four summer programs happening this year. So Carl is coming up to talk about the two of them. One is Books on the Bus, which we had historically called Books on the Bus, but this year is Cool Bus. And we had an elementary literacy camp. We had a middle school transitions program for eighth graders moving into ninth grade. And we also had our high school credit recovery and credit advancement. Marilee Herman will be talking about that high school part. This is Carl Olson.
Good evening. I'm Carl Olson, Director of Categorical Programs, here to share with you about 3 of the programs that I facilitated this summer. Some of you I know are very familiar with those, so we'll go ahead and get kicked off here. The first program is our Cool Bus, and we have a wonderful crew of staff who ran this program for us. This year, we actually decided to combine the math and the literacy elements, where it used to be one bus went out on Monday for checking out books and those kinds of activities. One bus went out on Wednesday for math. This time, we combined it and actually did have higher attendance, so that was helpful. Typically anywhere between 60 and 90 kids. The heat definitely played a little bit into it, but it wasn't like last year when we had some much more extreme heat. But I do want to recognize this wonderful crew of people here. They have been doing this for many years, and we brought back one of them, Maria, who's third from the left there, so that we would also have someone connected with our preschool and who is fluent in Spanish. So what we were trying to do is reach out to 2 different groups, given some of our stops, to start getting them more involved in taking part. Okay, we can go to the next one. So here you'll see a couple of activities. There's a check-in where people are bringing books and things like that. You'll also notice right there in that first picture, there was produce and flowers that was grown by Eagles Creek students and staff that was harvested every week. Whatever was ready was taken from the Eagle Creek garden and brought in. That was just given to families to pick up. So kind of a fun little twist and another little connection with that. Then you'll see in the right-hand side picture, that is Heather Jones working with a group of kids. And basically we treated it like a picnic, spread out some blankets, kids came in, parents were able to play also or ask some questions about the games. And we tried to do different math type games throughout the summer that were also easily accessible for families should they want to do those, or just to kind of get some ideas going. Typically, each stop lasted about 45 minutes, so it did go pretty quick. And then there were 5 stops that we had throughout the year. Throughout the day. And so they would go to each one. And as usual, parents were usually waiting and ready to go. Literacy camp this year, again, a very similar approach of learning through themes. You may have seen these same shark hats last year, and this is from Miss Lorelo's class, and she taught a 3rd grade group. And so whenever it was Shark Day, I had to go in and get more pictures. Kids wore their shark shirts, they had their shark hats, and it was a pretty wonderful time. But that was pretty consistent with the program throughout, where each teacher, given that it was just 8 half days, would have a theme that would run through it. We had teachers with artificial campfires in there. We had teachers doing, like a shark or an animal week. And a lot of good collaboration, a lot of people with our paraeducators doing small groups and really working with the kids on keeping their learning going through the summer. I realize I need to do better. We had almost 300 students sign up, with almost 200 students that showed up 3 or more times. So one of the things that we are trying to tease out is, where are those 100 students? And granted, some of them we could actually ask. We had one kiddo who came on the very last session, and that was it. We had another family, it was actually two families with 4 kiddos that signed up for other camps along the way or went camping. So they only came twice. So one of the things we're really trying to look at is how do we get that commitment, because we did turn some people away at the very end because of the class size. We had some classes that were starting as high as 28. And so, but we knew there's always some attrition. I will say, though, that this percentage is very similar to the year before, where about 2/3 actually came. It was much smaller. We had roughly 185 people sign up the year before, and probably had around 120, which was our largest day, about 120 that came pretty regularly. So overall, more attendance, but that percentage is still very similar. And then I'm currently working on some data, and I've already started because STAR data is coming in earlier. And what I'm doing is we have kids who are served in LAP, and that's a remedial reading program throughout the school year. They are our group that we're pulling from. And then we would open it up further if there was room, which is why that sign up is so important, and then to maintain that. So we're looking at the students who were LAP qualified that went versus the students that didn't, either because they never signed up in the first place or didn't show up 3 or more times. And we're just looking at their STAR data from the spring of last year to fall of now. And there actually is a majority of the data's come in. I will say it's not very conclusive yet. I've already compiled the data for 3 buildings, and it depended on the building. Where one building where we got the largest group of students from, there was a difference where the kiddos who went from last spring to fall, just no slide. It was like 1 week when you really kind of broke it down. Where in the same building, the students who didn't attend had about a 2-month slide. Couple other buildings that were smaller, it was a flip-flop. And the other way around, which of course, you know, I shake my head about. So, and I still have 1 more building to go, and then I'll be able to kind of compile that. But like I said, it's not very conclusive. I just wanted a way to find out how can we measure this, comparing apples and apples. And the size of the groups was very similar. Each group had about 200. So we'll be looking a little deeper into that. I will share there are some important intangibles if you were just there watching. I definitely found for some kids, this was probably going to be the one event they'd have all summer. This was it. And they were having a wonderful time, excited to come back. The parents were excited to have them there. That's an important intangible. Another one, 2 meals those days. And so the kids would have that food, they'd be eating it on site, so it wouldn't just go home and be thrown away. And so that's another important one. You could just sit out at recess or walk around in the classes and see the kids were engaged. They were happy to be there. So they're also getting some of those intangible collaboration skills, some social emotional support. That's a little more difficult to measure with a firm number based on a couple tests. So a couple pieces as we look further into this program, just to kind of keep digging into. And then the final program, before we turn it over to, oh, sorry, other highlights. I should pay attention to my own stuff, huh? Just a couple more samples of what happened. 5th and 4th grade students engaged in novel studies. So we kind of took it to that next level. The teacher for 5th grade actually did a field trip. Why not? And they did a walking field trip to get their library cards. So great idea, and get the kids involved, promoting it with parents. Lots of level group activities with paraeducators and teachers. It's amazing how, I mean, the teachers were doing quick assessments, getting kids into groups. It was pretty neat how they took advantage of every minute, and just lots of fun literacy building games. All right, 8th to 9th grade transition. This was a program, at least the second year that I've known about it. I do think there's been other tries at this before, but this was finding a group of 8th graders transitioning to 9th grade where their parents, the kids, the staff recognize, hey, let's give them that extra boost. And again, it's not just an academic boost. As you'll see in a further picture, part of it is similar to a kiddo who might do fall sports or activities where they're on campus in August. When they go into school in September, they already feel like they've got this just a little bit more because they've been around campus. They feel like I'm a high school student. It just isn't as scary and they know what they're doing and what they're jumping into. We did have a focus on writing stamina. That was a big piece, both through journals and actually working them through a project where they went through the writing process on a focus on the area of hope. And we actually had hope scores. You may hear about this screener in other places where we knew which of those kids did not have a lot of hope, which of those kids did, but really worked on promoting hope and how they can use the experience within the high school to further the hope in their lives. We had 4 staff. So when you're looking at, we had 15 students and 4 certificated teachers, pretty nice mix. 2 focusing on math, 2 focusing on reading and writing. And some of you may remember Frank Stallings. He was one of them. So he was a real benefit coming in there and working with those kids. And then the kids would also get 0.5, so semester elective credit. And so that's another way to give them that boost. They still had to fulfill certain requirements. They couldn't miss more than 2 out of the 15 days. They also had not only the writing task, but a math assessment, which was kind of looking into algebra. And so they did have some academic expectations with that to be able to get those credits. And like I said, the familiarity with the high school is huge. So on the next slide, you'll see a couple pictures. And this is one of the ways, there's Frank Stallings in all his glory. But one of the ways that he would do this is he did kind of a math scavenger hunt. And again, this was getting ready for algebra coming up. And he had things all over the school. And so an adult, and I got to be with this group over here, an adult would be with each group going around, but in the same way, they are exploring all over. And so it gave him a chance to kind of walk around different halls, find out where the gym is, find out where the cafeteria is. One more way to get them familiar with that setting, even though they were doing math. And so that was a brilliant idea that he had. And I'll tell you, he thoroughly enjoyed it. So lots of energy, 8th to 9th grade. I don't think I have to say much more. Lots of energy, but a wonderful opportunity for those kids to get a jump start into their freshman year. So before we turn it over to Marilee, are there any questions about any of those programs?
Carl, would you be able to review for me kind of the time commitments of those individual programs? I don't know that I recall what those were.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the bus program. That is every Wednesday from the last week in June to the first week in August. And it's an all-day event with those staff. Literacy camp is twice a week, Tuesday, Thursdays for 4 weeks. We start at the end of June because we know if we wait till later, we're going to lose people. The other thing that we did this year is we did run it during 4th of July week. Last year we didn't, and I think we lost some people. So we kept that going. And then this program is a 3-week, 5-day-a-week program, half day. Big home about 12:30. But so again, that's part of the kudos that we really didn't have many absences. And they were all very legit. So I give kudos to the parents and the kids. They were there. So, yeah.
Hey, Carl, I have a question for you. Can you talk about how the kids got involved, how they got invited, or how they qualified to be part of the summer programs? Did everybody get the same invitation, or was there certain groups that were targeted? And then can you also talk about some of the transportation issues?
Absolutely. So with the elementary program, we'll start there again. That was going through the LAP list, and during the spring conferences, that was that first point of contact where teachers could be talking to the families and finding out who wanted to go. From that, we have a Google form that we would push out for registration. So that one goes pretty smooth. We're still learning with the 8th to 9th grade. I know that last year it was some of those same things where we were really working on, and we had a list from each building. And Marilee had also talked with them about kids that, again, the counselors, administrators thought these kids could use that extra boost. And it was actually a very wide range of needs. I even hesitate to say at risk. There were some kids in this group, I would say, who had definite at-risk indicators. And for that reason, they really needed that extra boost, but not all by any means. And so they were just looking for who would benefit from it. But we still had to do a lot of follow-up and calling, and I even tried doing a few things with families that I knew from Kent Prairie and did personal invites. It was difficult to get the commitment. And so that is still something trying to explore. We would hear from parents, I don't want to have to get them up, or they just don't want to go, or, you can kind of see some of those things. And sometimes it was pretty much flat out. That was it. And so that was difficult, where the kids that went, it was actually kind of a pretty cohesive group, as well as, and we'll be kind of seeing how this impacts both behavior and academics, but I feel like they do have a nice boost, in that 0.5 credit can be really important when there's really no leeway credit wise. Oh, and the bus. I'm trying to think which thing you're talking about, but I think we didn't have enough drivers. Yep. So elementary, we did really well, but for the high school program, there wasn't always bus transportation available just due to lack of drivers. And this includes our transportation department reaching out to other districts, trying to bring people and hearing we've got the same problem. So that was pretty common. I will say a positive outcome was we had some families in this group get together. And that's, again, another wonderful twist, because it's one more way that families are connecting. They would carpool. There was not a single kid in this group who transportation was a barrier for coming. And so that I take as a pretty important aspect. Transportation was available 3 days a week. I think it was the Tuesday, Thursday, because of the lit camp double up. That made it difficult. But again, they were all there, and just connecting with families as we were working on those, the way some of them would say, hey, I'm coming from here, I can pick them up here, or, oh yeah, I know this family, we used to go to elementary together, I'll just swing by. They connected together and got that set up. So that is one of those wonderful things that, it's always good to see families coming together, especially as we're coming out of COVID. So trying to help each other.
Carl, I was just going to say, it might be, if this is our first year doing the 8th, 9th grade transitions, to look at these students and or families and see if they would be ambassadors for next year's group, and kind of spread that word. And maybe while it's still fresh in their mind, maybe do some recordings or interviews, something that you could upload to a website maybe. But I would think that kids respond to other kids, and that would be great to capture that now. And then next year, when you're launching the program again, maybe to take advantage of that, or testimonials or something.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, we'll turn it over to Marilee. Thank you.
All right, board and community, thank you for allowing me to zoom in tonight. I'm a bit under the weather, so but I do appreciate presenting to you this evening. I want to add a little bit to the 8th to 9th grade transition program, because it was very unique this year to host that in the Arlington High School building. Last year we hosted it at Haller Middle School, just with all the construction that was going on, we needed an alternate location. And it worked, but it was almost too much home for half the kids, and putting them at Arlington High School made that a home for them. One of the things that we looked at as well when we were building that program was kids that needed almost that relationship boost as well to stay connected. And so we're seeing the dividends pay off in that right now, because a lot of those kids are the ones that are coming and talking to myself and the other administrators every day. They've already met their freshman assistant principal, Mr. Axelson. They worked a lot with me, and just that presence, I think, has made them already more engaged in showing up at school every day. So that was another piece, just a benefit of that 8th to 9th grade transition program. Because there are a lot of kids we wanted to kind of catch and support a little extra anyway, and they've already got that boost coming in. So the other program we ran out of Arlington High School this summer, which we've typically run out of Weston, but with the construction there, again, we moved locations. So our B wing was pretty hopping this summer, is our summer high school credit retrieval and advancement program. I want to talk a little bit about how that is formatted. We use Apex as our platform to do that. So the kids are all kind of independent study online. If they failed a course, they are given a prescriptive. So because they've attempted and failed, they can come in and they can test out of units, because what we find is that often kids may have been at school for a time, they mastered certain portions of, let's say, math, but certain units they didn't for different reasons. They may have been out of school, maybe that was particularly hard. Usually something happened to affect that time in their life. So they could test out of units they know, and then focus their energy on the ones that they need to delve into more deeply to find mastery. And we have 5 content teachers. So if a kid is doing that prescriptive to get credit retrieval, they're either assigned to a history teacher, math, ELA, or science. So they get content area support as well from a teacher in the field. And then we have a 5th content area teacher who runs our Apex Credit Advancement program. And when a kid is signed up for credit advancement, they have to do the entire course. And we run our courses for 4 weeks, starting shortly after school gets out. We ran up pretty much on track to the 8th to 9th grade. We're just a little longer this summer. Kids are able to do 2 class periods in a day. We run 8:30 to 12:30 Monday through Friday. Attendance is very, very important and stressed. And so if they fail to attend or they have a certain number of absences, we do remove them from the program. We did have the same transportation issue this year, as Carl mentioned, with our 8th to 9th, but we did not have the magic of people coming together and carpooling. And so what we did 2 days a week for kids that had no alternative to get to school, they were required to log in online and check in with their teachers, and then their teachers had a Zoom open for those 2 days. Most kids figured it out, so they didn't miss too much. But I think that was one factor that made it a little hard for some of our kids. So, but we did have the Zoom in option. And then we added some additional support this summer. We always have one gen ed para to support. This summer, with our numbers of students, we were able to add 2 special education paraeducators. And we also had a summer school secretary dedicated to the program to do all of our attendance calling and those pieces as we work to get kids successful at school. And if we talk about numbers, this is going to be pretty awesome. Because we were using ESSER funds still, we were able to have all kids participate for free. And so we had 295 kids enroll, and our typical number pre-COVID was about 130 kids a summer. So we're about double our number for enrollment. We only had 15 of those 295 that didn't show up, didn't log in, didn't show up, didn't respond to attendance calls. And so a total of 280 kids attempted courses, again, about double our normal. And of those 280 kids, we had 565 courses attempted. And of those 565, 483 were completed for credit. So what I want to stress about those numbers, like I said, 565 attempted, 483 completed, is that many kids completed 2 courses and some attempted 3 but didn't quite have the time. And we have the ability to bank those courses. So if whether kids at Stilley Weston, or Arlington High School, we can bank their progress. And that's something they can re-enroll in through an Apex period at Arlington High School, through Weston, especially with their seventh period option, or through the AOP program. And so, even though those 565 weren't attempted, some were started and then paused. It's just a kid couldn't get through 3 courses in the time, perhaps. But we did have several that did complete that. So we had 69 of those 280 kids that utilized our busing system. And then as we look at credit retrieval for kids, and I look at my on track numbers right now, and you'll see the effects of COVID here, but 88% of our sophomores at Arlington High School are on track to graduate. 77% of our 11th graders are on track to graduate, and 78% of our seniors are on track to graduate. So perhaps lower than we've seen in the past, but as we're looking at COVID recovery, it's pretty solid numbers. And of some of those that are still behind, they're at 0.5 behind. So kind of our benchmark. So it's looking very positive heading forward into this year. As we get kids more consistently in school. For next steps, we'll be looking at getting the full team together to kind of see what we want to do next. If there's some supports we're missing at summer school, what transportation might look like, and some different pieces, just as we continue to evolve the program to be more successful and available for all kids. So questions on that for me?
I have a question.
Yes, Mary, what do you got?
The 15 kids that didn't show up and didn't start at all, does it count against them?
It
And-
does not.
Okay.
It does not even show up on their transcript.
Anybody else have any other questions?
And if a kid doesn't complete a course, like they attempt it and they maybe don't have time to finish it, or something like that happens, their transcript reflects an NC and no credit, and not an F. And like I said, they can go back to that course.
All right, I want to say thank you to everybody who shared. Thank you, Carl and Marilee, and all of the staff that made the summer programs so successful and helped reach our kids and help them through some of this COVID recovery. Just really, really great to see so much positivity and good teaching in the summer, and all those kids wanted to be there. It's great. And my high schoolers both benefited greatly. I really appreciate all that everyone has done. Thank you. Next up on our agenda is our unemployment compensation insurance program review. And this will be presented by Gina Zutenhorst, our Executive Director of Financial Services. Welcome, Gina.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here to present to you on the unemployment compensation insurance program. This is an annual thing that the board gets to look at. It is satisfying compliance with board policy. Let's see, what number is it? 6530. It says that we will take a look at this each year. And so to give you a little background. Did it move? Yes, it's moving. The Arlington Public Schools is and has been a member of the Northwest ESD 189 Unemployment Compensation Pool Cooperative. It's a cooperative program since 1978. This pool is a public entity risk pool for unemployment insurance. The way it works, it basically is claims against the district are paid by Washington State Department of Employment Security, and then they turn around and are reimbursed by the pool for all claims paid. And this program fulfills the district's unemployment insurance obligation, and it is proven to be financially and administratively efficient. A little about the pool membership. It includes 27 member school districts from Island, San Juan, Skagit, Snohomish, and Whatcom counties. It also includes the Northwest ESD as itself a member, and the Washington Schools Information Processing Co-op, WSIPSI, is also a member. And then they are audited by the Washington State Auditor's Office each year. And then their actuarial and solvency assessments are performed by PricewaterhouseCoopers, a CPA firm. They are one of the national big firms around for CPA firms. A quick summary of operations. The Northwest ESD provides these reports to us on an annual basis. The net estimated savings since its inception to August 31st, 2021, the net estimated savings for Arlington over that time span is 1.65 million. And the net estimated savings for the whole pool, all members, 51 million. And there is a net favorable experience of, it was 185,000 last year. And then it is 421,000 this most recent year that we have numbers for. A little about what we have paid into the pool for the past 4 years, or even, past 4 years. 2017, 2020, we paid zero into the pool. We had a capital reserve on with them that was sufficient to cover what would be our potential risk in the pool. And then for 2021, there was a mid-year assessment of 318,541. And when that was happening, there was a little bit of that was included in some of the financial highlights of current budget when we were speaking through that. The claims that have been paid by the pool for the past 4 years, zero in 2017-18. 2018-19, it was 18,000. 2019-20, 78,000. And then you can see 2021, 114,000.
Pardon me, Gina, is that just claims paid on behalf of Arlington School District, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
On behalf of Arlington. The pandemic, with that one mid-year assessment, it was a one-time assessment to districts paid into the pool in response to solvency assessments and in response to the Washington State Employment Department had a high volume of activity across the entire state. So the district's proportionate share was that 318,000, and we paid that in, and it's been satisfied. We did that in October of 2020, and our fund balance proved important in affording that unplanned expense at that time. The rates and reserves for the pool are based on a 5-year 100% experience rate model and individual district loss rate compared to the overall pool loss rate and value driven by claims. The capital reserves to be met by each district are based on each district's taxable wages. Our assessment for 2021's capital reserve was 1,400. And then the assessment for 21-22, 31,000-ish. And then the assessment for 21-22 was 32,000-ish.
Gina, why did that jump up so much?
Because previously they didn't have the same measure for how districts were to pay in. And it had to do with the structure of the pool and the way it needed to be reported in the financial statements. And basically our capital, what we already had on reserve with them when they switched to this risk-bearing sharing model was sufficient. It didn't need to be adjusted. But when they went through this, the changeover, it was about 5 some years ago. So that's why our capital reserve was sufficient until it was needed to be bumped up. So I don't know if that explained that very well, but you'd probably have to let me know and I could study it some more. Okay, the financial impacts, the estimated contribution, if we were paying into the state fund, it would have been 2.5 million. And that's over the course of our membership. The net estimated savings, like I had mentioned in the beginning, was since its inception is about 1.6 million. And those are kind of the main key points that I would share with you that are what you would think of or want to know around this pool and this arrangement. And it's considered a wise business solution for unemployment insurance, both financially and administratively. So that is all I have for you on that. And are there any questions?
So Gina, you were comparing the financial impact. If we had gone with the state, there was that 2 million and the net savings was 1.6 million or something.
Yes.
Why would anyone like not do what we're doing, I guess? I mean, why would you ever do the state funding versus this Northwest, this collaborative with the other counties?
I don't know. That one's a good question. I am not sure I know of any districts that is not participating in our region. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
Presenting. Next up on our agenda is the very lengthy report of district vehicles assigned to staff on a 24-hour basis. And this will be presented by Brian Lewis, our Executive Director of Operations.
So Mary presaged the brevity of this presentation. Board policy 6640 requires the superintendent to report to the board at the start of each school year the number of district vehicles assigned to staff members on a 24-hour-a-day basis. As of today, there are no district vehicles assigned to staff members on a 24-hour basis. Be happy to answer any questions you might have. We're frugal. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for that lengthy report. Next up will be our board and superintendent goals and board professional development plan for 22-23. And this will be presented by Superintendent Sweeting.
Good evening. So we're going to show the board goals. We've worked on them actually for 2 study sessions. We've worked on them in September and then again just recently. So actually in August and then September, both of those study sessions. And so we've gone through a long process. We looked at the results of our self-assessment as a board. The goals are aligned with what the needs are for us to become a board that can make good decisions. It's well-informed and is set to make wise decisions. So board goal 1 is focused on professional development. And this was changed somewhat. It's to WASDA has onboarding modules, and the equity one is required for us. And then there's other choices. And so we put on here that the board did. This was a group effort, a small group effort, and then shared at the last study session that we would do 2 of the onboarding modules during this year. And I will say at this point on the professional development for the WASDA conference coming up, everybody's jumping on board and all of the equity ones are full. But I did sign, or Debbie did sign all of us up for the finance one, the budgeting one, which would be the other one that would apply to this. So anyway, so that's goal 1. Goal 2 is focused on increasing our understanding as a board team, best practices, and we're focusing on universal design for learning. We started this actually already last board meeting where Carrie Henderson-Burke, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, is going to come and engage us in what that is. But not just that, but bringing teachers who are going to come to the study sessions and show how it is applied and the benefits of using variability and universal design for learning. So this is about the board engaging in those opportunities and learning. Then board goal 3 is focused on increasing involvement of our community in the budget process. And ensuring that there's always the opportunities of the public hearing and board meetings and community meetings are addition to that, and some pre-recorded videos. We know that as we move into further into this year where we have some budget challenges and there are going to be some impacts, and we want to have public input and an understanding about the challenges that we face. So that's important to have that information out there. So we begin with some informational type meetings and look towards like even the Community Voices event that's coming up in October. We will seek to ask some thoughts about budget as well. Goal 4, we really did not change. We kept that the same because we engaged in Carrie Helgeson engaged us in looking at disaggregated data on student information on belonging and at the last study session. And so we're going to continue to do that in order to make better decisions about what kind of resources do we need, what kind of resources maybe do we not need, and to close the opportunity gaps that exist. And then finally, the goal 5 is to ensure that the board, that we're actively involved in listening and learning from our public, and that includes our students and our community and our families. So just the board making a commitment that they're going to be involved in at least 2 of those opportunities. So those are the board goals. Any questions or any feedback? Okay. The next one is the superintendent goals. We looked at this last study session. It states on here the strategic plan value and the criteria that they're aligned to within the superintendent evaluation. The first one is focused on fostering positive board and soup relationships by working with the board as a team and serving as a liaison between the board and staff and keeping the board informed. That it's very similar to what was done last year. The next goal is to engage the board in at least 3 formal reviews and celebrations of the progress being made towards our strategic plan goals and other improvement goals like the school improvement goals and our district improvement goals. This is important. It's part of our accountability as a board in looking at what's happening, and are we measuring the right things, and are we making progress? So goal 3 is, that we will facilitate the board, team, and other staff in activities that increase our understanding about the concept of equity. In other words, removing barriers to learning and increasing access to learning, and also culturally responsive and inclusionary practices, all for the purpose of increasing learning and closing gaps. So that's engaging in learning more about, like, universal design for learning will be a piece of that as well. And the final one, goal 4, is that this year we've already established it. We've had 1 meeting so far, but the District Student Advisory Council, which is a combination of the 2 student advisors on the board, the student advisors on ACE, the student advisors on the district community equity team, and students that represent different clubs at the secondary level. So they're all going to come together. We've met once, and we're going to continue, like there's 4 or 5 times, and they're going to help craft what we're going to talk about. But bottom line is we're going to sit and talk and listen, and it'll be a really good thing. Those are the 4 goals for the superintendent. And so this, I believe, is yep. If we go on to the professional development plan, basically we shared at the last study session the dates of the study sessions. They're almost all of them are on Monday nights, 1 a month for the most part. I will say that that's fluid. So right now we have them listed, but we might need to add one in January. I was looking at the schedule, and all the Mondays are taken up in January, but we may need to come in January and talk more about budget. And so I may ask the board to add one, not sure the date yet, but in January. But just a heads up on that. It lists the WASDA onboarding study sessions and the trainings that are available. And it lists the conferences that are available. And so basically the purpose of the conferences and the study sessions and the networking opportunities on Thursdays, like it's almost every other Thursday, is to build our capacity as a board team. What questions do you have? And you will note, we have a board joint meeting with the city and the hospital districts, District 1 and 3 this year on January. So January, all the Mondays are full.
All right, are there any questions or comments about the board goals, superintendent goals, or the professional development? This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the board goals, superintendent goals, and the professional development plan?
Make a motion, we approve the board and superintendent goals and board professional development plan for 2022-23.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board and superintendent goals and the board professional development plan for 22-23. Madam Clerk, can we take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. We have our goals. We're going to work on them now.
And they are SMART goals. That means that they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound.
And next up is our first reading of Board Policy 3116, Students in Foster Care. And it looks like Brian Long is going to
It
be
is
talking
going to
about
be
this.
Brian Long, the Director of College and Career Readiness. So mine won't be as fast as Brian Lewis's. I can't, but I can be pretty close to it. So really, there's only two significant changes. The dependency proceeding is added to the foster care, which is nothing more than if the process starts, we need to treat them as if they're in foster care. And then if it determines that they're not in it, we just deactivate that. But while it's happening, we treat them like they are. So then the other one is quite a ways down. And it's just a change in the way that we provide transportation. So we now provide transportation like we would for our McKinney-Vento students, School of Origin, at Fun Jazz. So before it was actually separated, this is relatively new and we've started to do this already. So it's no huge change for us. That's it. Unless you have questions.
Brian, can you explain what a dependency proceeding is?
Sure. When a student goes through the process of determining who's going to be in charge of them. So if CPS determines that your parent isn't really a good parent anymore, that's a dependency proceeding. And then they determine who's going to be your charge, who's going to be in charge of that kid. So grandma and grandpa usually end up, in most cases, being the person in charge of those children. So anytime that process is started, we treat them as if they're in foster care.
How long does that sort of process take?
That wildly varies. It could literally be one meeting because everyone agrees that this is what's better for the kid, including the parents. They're like, yeah, I can't take care of my kid. I just can't handle it. I want my parents to do it. And parents are like, yes, we will. Done deal. Or it can take years. So vastly different.
Thank you for explaining.
Sure. That's all.
Next up, we will have our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 2110, Transitional Bilingual Instruction Program. And welcome back to the microphone, Carl Olson.
Thank you. So we will start first with policy 2110, which is our transitional bilingual instruction program. The only change that we made from the first reading was adding the word guardian. So it is inclusive of parent, guardian, and family members. Beyond that, everything is the same from the first reading. So are there any questions?
Nope, this one is an action item as it's the second reading and adoption. Do we have a motion to approve Board Policy 2110, Transitional Bilingual Instruction Program?
I move that we adopt the Board Policy 2110, Transitional Bilingual Instructional Program.
I'll second.
I second.
Yay. It's been moved and seconded to approve Board Policy 2110, Transitional Bilingual Instruction Program. Madam Clerk, can we take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Thank you. That one is approved. And next we will have Board Policy 4218, the Language Access Plan by Carl Olson.
Thank you. And again, compared to our first reading, the only change in this for the second reading of 4218 is again that inclusion of guardians. And we went through to look in all those places where that is mentioned to make sure to have that. Beyond that, we did not make any changes. And again, I will be happy to report we are in very good shape for initiating this new policy in terms of the work ahead with the committee to determine our language access plan, which is due to be in place for next year.
Thank you. This is another action item. Do we have a motion?
How about a question?
Also a question.
Carl, how or is there any functional difference in what we're currently doing and what this, there's some, some significant language changes in this, how that would affect our district?
So there's a couple components with this. The first one is the plan I was telling you about, where now districts are required to actually have a plan in place. And this is to go into next year. So there'll be some functional aspects in terms of getting input from different stakeholders, including parents, as well as having that plan approved based on a model that will be coming out from OSPI soon. In terms of the workload itself, again, we have a lot of these things already in place. A good example is last year we created a brochure for families in right now 3 languages. We might be adding a 4th, but this already provides a lot of the expectation here. We have Google Voice phones for our interpreter tutors. They're on the brochure. We added the required complaint procedure. So we have both that standard procedure that we put down related to 504 special education, that area, but we also added one specific to language access that lists that. So we had that done just this year. And then the next piece really is getting information out and talking to our stakeholders. Good example is what we did at Community Voices last year at Eagle Creek, where we met with a large group of families that all had Spanish as their first language. Some of their input led into having an interpreter tutor available at every building who speaks Spanish. So we have the access. We may be looking to review a few documents, but I'll tell you in talking with Gary Sable, much of what they require, we're already translating. So again, feeling in really good shape. So what I am sensing is going to be articulating this and having that document, the procedure, and a yearly review procedure in place. We already serve parents or survey parents in different languages, so we have that input to back this up. There's a lot of good stuff already there.
Great question. Any further questions? Do we have a motion to approve Board Policy 4218 Language Access Plan?
I make a motion, we approve Board Policy 4218 Language Access Plan.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Board Policy 4218 Language Access Plan. Madam Clerk, can we take a vote, please?
Director Ray,
Aye. Although I do have a follow-up question. I apologize. I'm reading here, it says language access, but plan is crossed out. So is it in? So I think we might want to just modify our motion to language access. Would that be more appropriate?
I have no objection to amending the motion. Does anyone else have any objection to amending the motion?
No.
I'm sorry, we're taking the word plan off of?
So the title of
Yes.
the
The
policy
title-
changed.
It's going to change to that, yes.
Correct.
But right now it's called access plan. So
Correct. And as soon as we adopt this policy, then it will change to language access.
Yeah.
So it is very much a brain circle.
yeah,
Right. And part of that is because we have to develop a language access plan, which is separate from the policy. So I think that's why we had to take that off.
Are we all very now informed and
I will withdraw my comment and just vote aye.
okay. Director Kelly,
I,
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Board policy 4218 language access plan is now adopted and will now become 4218 language access. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Next up on our agenda is our superintendent's report, Dr. Sweeting.
Last Friday, we had our first Student Voices activity or opportunity at Eagle Creek. And I just wanted to share a couple of the comments, the students that they shared with us while we were sitting outside in the outside classroom. We asked them, what do you love about your school? And one of them said, I love that all the staff and students are so kind. One student said, my teacher, and one said, everything. Then we asked them, what makes learning fun for you? Number one answer, teachers. Then we asked them, what makes it hard for you to learn? Number one answer, noise. In the future, I would like my school to have elevators. So then that led to the question, what? There's not, and there's not a second floor, but that was a great idea. And another student said a bigger garden and a second floor. So there you go. That's right. And this last week, we also did our great shakeout practice, and that went well. It was district wide, and we practiced the DO dividing into two teams and having the team go over Haller as that at that moment for the reunification site. So you saw that on the district website if you looked at the most recent pictures. That was awesome to practice. Hopefully we don't have to put it into reality, but it's always good to practice. I wanted to read a couple more thank yous. These are for the Mayo scholarships. Thank you so much for the scholarship. I feel extremely thankful to have received it. This will help me so much next year as I further my education. Emily. Dear directors, it is in my extreme gratitude that I'm writing to thank you for selecting me for this scholarship. I'm honored to have received this scholarship, and I'm grateful for Mr. Mayo and his family, especially with all the other deserving candidates. This scholarship will be a big part in my future. In the fall, I am attending the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where I will be studying computer science and playing basketball. Computer science is a difficult degree, and this scholarship will help me focus on school without working. Once I complete my degree at University of Alaska, my goal is to get a job at a technology company in the United States and start a family. This money will help me achieve my dreams. Thank you again for your support of Arlington grads. I'm honored to be part of this group and to represent Mr. Mayo's legacy at Ethan. To the Mayo family, thank you once again for this blessing to continue my higher education. I'm coming up on my senior year, and I have changed so much from graduating from Arlington. Destiny. So some of these are renewable. So some of these students have received the scholarship over several years. And so it's really good to hear what's happening with them. Dear Selection Committee, thank you very much for awarding me the Mcguire Mayo Endowment Scholarship. I aspire to be a livestock veterinarian with this gracious award. You are helping me to make my dream come true. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this gracious gift, and I can assure you it will not be wasted. I will be working very hard over the next few years and you have made this possible. Thank you again, and I look forward to sharing my successes with you. I'm very honored to receive the Maroon Mcguire Mayo Endowment Scholarship. And finally, we've got a picture on this one too. This scholarship means a lot to me as the first in my family to attend university. This scholarship helps open the door for me to achieve my dreams. I will be leaving Washington to attend Texas State University in Lubbock. I decided on Texas because of their amazing programs. While I am there, I will major in nutritional sciences and dietitians or dietetics, I guess is what you call it. Health and fitness are a huge passion of mine, so I also plan to get my personal training certification as well. I am beyond grateful to be awarded this scholarship. Thank you, Tabitha. So, we have a mission that says we're going to educate and inspire and prepare students. And when we hear back from these students, we are doing that. And it's good to be reminded of the future that we opened up for them by pursuing every day our mission.
Thank you. That's very positive. Next up is our legislative update and discussion. Sherry.
So tomorrow I will be attending a 12-to-1 session in preparation for the actual General Assembly, which is Friday and Saturday. So tomorrow's the preview, I guess, and then we'll be looking at what that 48 hours essentially entails. And I'm thinking it's more about legislative and then coming together as boards and deciding, what our intentions are, what we want to see, put forward in terms of legislation. So looking forward to attending that.
Thank you. Next up is comments from board members. I'd like to start with our student advisor. Kyle, do you want to share?
My only update is that school kind of feels like it's back into the swing of things and it feels normal again. So that is nice. And then just on a side note, I would like to say that after hearing about the Student Voices event, I still remember going to President's and becoming a third grader and moving up to the second floor. So I sympathize with the need for a second floor. And then that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Knapp, would you like to share any thoughts?
Yeah, I was happy to be there at Eagle Creek, listening to the students, and the elevator comment, I think really made our day. And then also hearing some of the students talk about coding, which I think is really cool. I think it was third grader. And then also the phone call that I was on a panel with WASDA this last week and talking about our equity policy and our equity plan. And I was pretty nervous. And the newest board member on the panel, one of the board members from Lake Stevens had been a member since 1999. So, but it was great. I didn't feel out of place at all. So it was nice to be welcomed and just to chat about what we've all been up to. So I'm looking forward to conference.
Thank you. Thank you for being there and representing. And it's fun. Director Ray, would you like to share any thoughts? Director Kelly, do you have anything to share?
Just real quick, I would like to convey the mood of what the school district is doing. Obviously, is making itself known because I was doing some doorbelling with my daughter yesterday in Crown Ridge, and I walked up and I saw "All Are Welcome" on the rainbow. It was really sweet. So I know there were some kiddos, and so obviously it's making its way home.
Thank you. Director Kingman, do you have any comments?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to share a few thoughts that I've had as school started. It's been quite remarkable at our house how our children are now able to get up early and get out the door. It's just amazing how they're motivated, and it feels so normal to be back in a normal school year. It's so much better. We still have a long ways to go, but I want to share that I enjoyed going to the ribbon cutting at the high school. I learned quite a bit about some of our new building accoutrements that we have. It's pretty exciting. And I was able to go to our first football game and see our whole community there and hear the band. And it was so lovely. And the band sounded amazing. And was able to watch a high school cross country meet. And also was quite moved and inspired when I attended our Stronger Together event last Saturday at the farmers market. It was really enjoyable to have so many different parts of our community come together and recognize that we are stronger together. And we got to hear from Aaron Jones and hear the choir sing, and got to hear Lakewood Jazz Band, and they'd only had 9 days to practice together or something, and they sounded amazing, and just really neat to have our community coming together in a beautiful sunny environment. And so that was my take on this last month of having school start up again. I also want to share that we have our next meeting coming up on Monday, October 10th, 2022 at 6 p.m. right here in the boardroom. And if there are no other things before the board, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly,
I.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Drive safe.